I think I have a question for you all because I was when Meinrad was talking about the void and the darkness, sort of being first. And when I was a child, I used to lie on my back outside and look up at the sky, and I would start imagining taking away everything. I would take away the grass and the trees and the houses and the everything on Earth, and then I'd start in the sky, taking away the stars and the sun and the moon, and I couldn't ever take everything away. I mean, I could come to this sort of void of just being sort of in a black space, and it wasn't ever scary to me. But I even kept doing this when I was a teenager. I would sometimes, not regularly, but occasionally just find myself doing that. And I don't know what any of that meant, but I just wonder if anyone else has ever done this.
I have rarely spoken about this to anyone, and I've never heard anyone speak as you have spoken about the same experience I had as a child. I would lie on the ground at night. It was after Grandpa had left to go to the station to drive the Rock Island line from Little Rock to Memphis. And Mima would usually still be hanging around the front porch, and I'd hear the slam, slam, bang, bang. It's one of my memories of the South, just people moving from the front porch back in and then coming back out to the front porch. The bang of screen doors. So I wasn't alone, but I was alone, and it was the same experience. I would lie there, and I would start taking away the street. Then I would take away people. Then I would take away the houses. Then I would start up here. Then I'd take away the moon. I'd take away the stars. And I very often would fall sound asleep getting rid of all the stars, because of course there are a lot of stars. I never made it. I never got rid of all the stars. But this is astonishing. We should be sitting side by side and articulating this story. And I thought it was the most blissful game in the world. Just making everything emptier and emptier and emptier and emptier until it just got... And I don't know how we did it. I think only children can probably do that. Like, that star's not there. But it's not that the star disappeared. It's just that in your own imagination, that star wasn't there. And if I tried that now, I bet I wouldn't even have the power to do it.
I don't know either. I haven't done it in a really long time.
And I also have a feeling, as I look back on it, that we could only do it because we were in such a safe place that we could keep moving out because of our own sense of safety.
I've only told one other person about that experience, so I've never.
Well, now we're in
group.
I was going to say, now we're in deep shit, because a lot of people know about it.
And my friend had the strangest reaction to me. They were just like, I was sort of like, that is just too weird for a child to be, I don't know. I think they had a feeling of sort of a death wish or something, which it wasn't at all. But anyway, I'm so glad to know you had this too.
It was a sensation of emptying and emptying and emptying.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And knowing somehow that it was fantasy.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
I'll tell you, that thing picks up if you have it in your lap.
Oh, okay.
You don't have to
We don't have to speak into it. Okay.
What is the feeling that would come over you as you took stuff away?
Bliss.
That's
like
the
a
sense I'm
calm. It
getting.
was just like a letting go and,
was there any
floating,
sense
sort
of
of.
moving into the
No,
void?
not for
or
me.
No, there wasn't a sense of moving, but it was this utter sense of emptiness and detachment.
Yeah.
But I think we could only feel that because we were in a completely safe place. Otherwise, it would be terrifying, I think. That would be my...
Yeah, probably so. Well, I'm so amazed, between your picture vessel and that being the place that sort of, is home to you, and that being sort of this image of home to me all these years, and are imagining everything going away. It's just really weird in my head.
Well, I'll tell you another, possibly even something like the opposite experience. From time to time, when the weather's just, when the weather's just, you see, Lisa, always telling me where to put the microphone.
It's an old habit.
From time to time, and not very often, and as I get older, not as often, but I take myself out into just empty space. And although Albuquerque's a huge city, there's an awful lot of empty space around here. And I wait till it's dark of moon, so the stars are like balls of fire up there, and lie down and just be inside that black night in balls of fire. It used to be that I didn't have to get far from the road because there was no traffic. I used to use the road between here and Hiddenness. But now, of course, it's traffic all the time. And of course, what used to be desert is now filled with, tracts of housing. So a lot has changed in nearly 20 years. But it was the reverse of that, because it was, instead of my imagination emptying the sky, I let the stars drop nearer and nearer and nearer and nearer. And it was there because it was like feeling the weight of the light coming down and invading me. And you don't have to have a desert. I mean, those of you who are able to get away, what you need is dark of moon. You need to get rid of city lights. And I can't really, in Albuquerque, being a big city, get that pure. It's not like I'm in the wilderness. But if you have an opportunity, a dark of moon, to be in wilderness and have a view of the sky, even if it's an opening surrounded by trees, it really is an astonishing. And the stars do begin to spin. They really do. They begin just being, well, like light bulbs, sort of, pinpricks in the darkness, but they do begin to spin. And I've never heard the sound of the spheres, but people say that they talk about an experience like this, and they hear the universe. I have to admit, I've never heard the universe spinning. That would be fantastic. Wow. Maybe you have to be so far removed. Maybe you really have to be out really alone in an empty space to hear the purity of that sound. But wouldn't that be fabulous? And then you think, gee, what color would that sound like to hear the sound of the spheres? Well, that's a pretty spacey beginning.
Yeah. This is another one that's an invitation, because I totally got sparked, and I heard Meinrad. I don't know if she actually used these words in reference to that was going to be one of our themes, or she just tossed them off in some of her profundity about the various images. But she used the term hiddenness and hiding. I've badgered her about it a couple of times since then, and she says, well, we'll talk about it with the group. I don't know. So I'm going to invite, I just would love to explore that. I guess in my journey, I have held it against myself a lot for basically being a chicken shit and hiding from a lot of things, and saying no to many things that I should have said yes to, and of course conversely saying yes to far too many things that I should have said no to, but mostly saying yes to the things of the outer world that claimed me, and that connection was sort of my way of getting approval. And like it seems like I spent the first however percentage of my life I am up to now with my main project being getting approval, and I'm really worn out of that project. Feel like I'm tired of that project. I want that project to be over and done with, and I'm ready to get on to a new one that has more to do with genuine generativity. And so I have, in various ways explored the topic of how I've just been such a chicken shit, and, how I wasn't an artist since I was little, even though I probably should have been. And a dream, a dream that I had when I was little that I haven't shared much, that was very profound and extremely frightening to me. It was actually an encounter with Jesus. And it was, all I kind of remember about it is that he looked at me and he told me he wanted me to help people. And that was overwhelmingly terrifying to me. I think I was about 6. And I don't think my parents were getting along very well at the time because they separated shortly after that. But so I didn't feel like I could crawl in bed with them, but I went and crawled into the covers that were thrown at the end of their bed to just try to find a safe place. And anyway, so I feel like I've definitely shaped and defined a lot of my experience in life based on fear and based on hiding from Jesus, or, Jesus, you can't mean that. And it's only been recently, as I've done lots of journaling and lots of journeying and lots of working with images, that I've come to imagine that there was hiding more like a sense that there was a real treasure that kind of needed to be protected, or maybe germinated, maybe it was more like a seed, but a sense of a treasure that kind of needed to be hidden. So this is kind of a little bit what we were talking about. I'm in this kind of in the middle of this paradox that my old explanation of myself as a chicken shit. What if
when
it's...
you use that expression, do you mean a coward?
Yes, I mean a coward. That's exactly what I mean. I really feel like I've been a coward.
In the sense of hiding rather than facing what you needed to face in life.
Yes. Bingo. You got it. And now kind of beginning to explore the possibility that there was hiding in more of a sense of protecting and more of a sense of, withholding until the time is right, or I don't know exactly. So, anyway, this imagery that I have now about myself, that the story that I'm telling about myself is really shifting, and I've started to wonder about this idea of hiding and hiddenness and treasure. Was it hoarded treasure? Or is it really, it just hasn't been the right time, and there's this whole timing about it, this whole kind of, like natural timing that I just didn't know about, the cycles where there's a time for things to be hidden and then there's a time for things to emerge. And anyway, so I would really love to hear what others, what there is about that, if there's anything about that.
Well, I could say something. I think it's probably like all of these great themes that it's what we bring to it, that what we get out of it. I've always counted it as one of the greatest energies of my life, the need to stay hidden, because I've understood it as the hiding of treasure, and that it's revealed possibly because of, myths and storytelling, the idea of the secret treasure that's hidden away and then found when one needs it. And I guess I've always associated it with creative life, because creative life is, at least in my art, obviously, I could speak only from my own experience. Obviously, theater is an entirely different experience in terms of, the arts, but to stay hidden, when you're doing image making at least, and I think anyone who does it on a regular basis probably would feel this way too, it's a very solitary experience. There's no such thing really as communal art, except in the broadest sense of a half dozen people making a mural, but that's not ordinary creative experience. So image making is very much a dialogue between you and the canvas or piece of paper or piece of steel or whatever. And if you're going to bring something out of nothing, how could it be otherwise? If you're going to make something combination of line and color and shape and storytelling that's truly never existed before, then how could it not, it would have to come out of a certain amount of silence and hiddenness. I think of animals through time all over the world, and as we speak, dropping their litters in caves and, gullies and, in silence. There's something about the appearance coming out of that place of nothingness or hiddenness that I think has something to do with the mystery of making. So that to hide is to guard, and to guard means that you're guarding what you just said. You're guarding a treasure, and that you can't receive the treasure unless you can actually use the treasure, and you can't use the treasure unless the circumstances are right in terms of giving it back to the world. I don't mean the hiding and the treasure is for yourself. It's for you to receive, but then give back out again. It's kind of like that, again, I keep returning to that same slide, receiving, integrating, and outpouring. But I think that the receiving, don't you think, happens in pretty much solitude and aloneness, and then you're giving it to the world, so to speak, is the other side of that coin. It's not an end in itself. It's a place where something happens that you then give from that place. But I also think hiding can be about healing. There are just times when we just need to hide in order to heal all sorts of wounds. And I think that probably is maybe an experience we've all had. When you're wounded, it's like you just want to close the door until you're healed. And surely in a lifetime, we've all had lots of moments like that. And they are passionately difficult. And, it's true that we need each other to heal, and we do help each other heal, but so much healing is just between the I and the thou being the spirit world. I mean, the thou being however we define spirit, and however that dialogue is, or prayer, whatever word you use. Certainly I use prayer. I've got a huge spirit world that I activate and have spirits that I call upon, and spirits that I call upon in the course of every day when I'm working, when I'm painting. I'll pass it on to someone else.
I just wanted to say one word. Incubation. That's what jumped into my mind when you said hiding, and it just seems like waiting.
And that sounds like so many animals who, in the last stages of their pregnancy, search for a place. They dig a den. They search for a place to hide in those final stages of their term, and they give birth. They have to, for the safety of the critters that they're bringing into the world. They have to find a safe place to den, to hibernate, as Amy just said, because what they're giving birth to is pretty delicate. So that hiddenness is also pretty important. That we hide, as Amy implied, because something big is happening and we need to incubate it. And we need the solitude and the darkness and the hiddenness to incubate. Such a blessing, Corey.
Yeah.
My daughter says, Mom, he smiles.
He does. She's right.
not sure which one of you was luckier.
Well, doesn't that, don't those energies pull toward each other? Well, he's going to come say hello to everybody. Well, bless you, darling. Isn't this just, of course.
You're not going
Aren't you just the sweetest boy in the world?
I think he thought we were getting a little too serious.
Well, I just think this is absolutely wonderful.
Are you saying it's time to dance?
I think
And
it's
I'm gonna
time
do
to
the
dance.
circle?
Is it time to dance? What do you think? Anyone else want to say good night?
Good night.
Good night. Good night.
Good night, son.
Good night. Good night, River. Yes, good night, Moon. Good night, Sun.
Night star.
Good night, Sage. Good night, each of you. Good night, each of you. And may we all meet merrily here tomorrow morning.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you.